You ever find yourself lost in a daydream that feels so vivid, so real, that it's actually more compelling than reality itself? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive into Deon Melancon's incredible guide for understanding and, transforming this powerful and sometimes really overwhelming experience. We're going to explore how it gets started, why it sticks around, and most importantly, how you can start to reclaim your focus and enrich your actual real life.
Okay, so to help us navigate all this, here's a quick look at the journey we're about to take together. First, we'll map the landscape to really understand what maladaptive daydreaming is. Then, we'll move from shame to compassion, dig into the underlying pain, and get into some really practical strategies for designing a richer reality and fortifying your focus. And finally, we'll talk about how to navigate your path forward from here.
So, where does something like this even begin? Well, a lot of the time, it starts with something pretty simple, a harmless little fantasy. But as the pressures of life start to build up, that simple escape can kind of morph into something a lot more compulsive, something that's way harder to control.
To really get a grip on what we're talking about here, Melancon points us to the pretty groundbreaking work of a researcher named Eli Sommer. He actually identified 5 key features that separate this kind of daydreaming from just, your average mind wandering. Okay, so first up, the scenarios are incredibly vivid. We're talking full-on movie-like storylines here. Then you've got time distortion, where you might look up and bam, hours have just vanished. This can lead to a serious emotional roller coaster, right? From the high of being in that fantasy to the crash of guilt when you snap back to reality. These daydreams are also often sparked by tangible triggers, things like stress or even just boredom. And finally, you might find yourself stuck in repeated scripts, playing out the same stories again and again.
Now, to make this all real for you, the chapter ends with a bit of a challenge. For just 1 week, try to log how often you daydream, how intense it feels, and what the emotional fallout is afterward. Just think of it like you're creating a map of your own inner world. It's the very first step to navigating it in a whole new way.
All right, so now that we've kind of mapped the landscape, let's talk about something that almost always goes hand in hand with this experience: shame. It's that heavy feeling that makes you keep it a secret, totally hidden away.
And here's a really fascinating idea. What if that harsh inner critic that beats you up about this isn't actually your enemy? Melancon suggests we try to see it as a well-meaning guardian that's just gone a little rogue. It's trying to protect you by hiding away painful feelings. So, how in the world do you actually build this self-compassion? Well, the book offers some fantastic tools. Things like taking daily compassion breaks just to actively appreciate yourself, or keeping a shame journal, not to dwell on the negative stuff, but to practice rewriting those critical thoughts. There are even guided scripts to help you open up to someone you trust. The whole goal here is to eventually create your very own compassion manifesto, which is basically a promise to start treating yourself with some real kindness.
And this leads us to probably the most crucial point of all. The daydreams themselves, they aren't the root problem. They're actually a symptom. So to make any real change, we have to look deeper at what's fueling them, whether that's anxiety or grief or some other unmet need. So the book gives us this super practical 4-step process for this. Step 1, identify the feeling. What is it really? Frustration? Loneliness? Step 2, trace the trigger. What just happened that made you feel this way? Then, step 3, validate the need. What were you truly longing for in that moment? And finally, step 4, create an action plan. What are just 1 or 2 small, real things you can do to meet that need? It's all about replacing the fantasy with real-world action. So if the daydreams are a response to unmet needs, what if that powerful pull of your inner world is just a sign that your outer world needs a little more, life? The idea here isn't to crush your imagination at all. It's to make your real life so engaging that you don't need to escape it anymore. This quote really just gets to the heart of it all, doesn't it? It's not about fighting your imagination. It's about feeding your reality. So how do we do that? Well, by actively building more richness into our days. This could be through passion projects, dedicating real time to the things you actually love, or creating social anchors, making sure you have regular, energizing connections with other people. Planning novelty days to break up the routine and try something totally new is another great one. And meaning mapping helps you figure out what truly brings you joy and a sense of purpose. The idea is to weave these things into your life so that reality itself just becomes more compelling. Okay, so making all these changes is one thing, but sticking with them, that's a whole other ballgame. This is where we really need to build up our mental focus, almost like we're strengthening a muscle.
And for this, the book provides a whole toolkit packed with these little hacks for both your mind and your environment, all designed to help you stay present and build the reality that you actually want. This includes stuff like time blocking your day to create these dedicated focus periods, keeping a distraction journal to really become aware of what pulls your attention away, doing quick attention workouts to train your focus, and even curating your space to create really clear zones for work and for relaxation. And look, these aren't just little tricks, they're actual exercises that train your brain to stay present.
Let's be real, change rarely, if ever, follows a straight line. So in this final chapter, Melancon makes it totally okay to have lapses and give you the tools to pivot really quickly when they happen. One of the key tools here is creating if-then plans. So basically, you decide ahead of time what you'll do when you feel that urge to daydream. Keeping progress logs is another one. It helps you see how far you've come and learn from any challenges. And please, don't forget a reward system. Celebrating your wins is a huge part of staying motivated.
And this right here is the mindset shift that makes all the difference. Viewing setbacks not as failures, but as data. That's it. It's all just information to help you learn and adjust. It's about progress, not about being perfect.
So, after all this, what's the big takeaway? This guide really helps reframe maladaptive daydreaming, not as some kind of flaw, but as a doorway to understanding yourself on a much deeper level. It's a journey from shame to compassion, from being pulled away by fantasy to consciously designing the life you want to live.
By the end of it all, you're left with this personalized toolkit of strategies that you can adapt as you continue to grow. The goal isn't to get rid of your imagination, not at all. It's to integrate it so that you are the one in control of the story, not the daydreams.
And hey, if this has really sparked your interest and you want to learn more, there's some amazing resources out there. You can check out the research by Professor Eli Sommer, who we mentioned earlier. There are also some really supportive online communities you can join. Mindfulness apps can be a huge help. And if you want to get better at building new habits, S.J. Scott's guide is a fantastic place to start.
Ultimately, this whole thing is about empowerment. It's about giving you the tools to reclaim your time, your attention, and your sense of wonder. And to find that wonder not just in fantasy, but in the richness of your own life, grounded firmly in the here and now.